Well, welcome back, my rambunctious revolutionaries. I'm glad you could join me again today. I could use all the damn manpower I can get. Last time I saw you, we had just built two big, beautiful vehicles. Our first of what we hope to be many that will help us out in our war effort, of course. But we do have a great point by our friend Gish Kramer 1702, who was saying that the current vehicles that we're building don't exactly fit this type of empire. And you know what? I agree. Also, they're very expensive and complicated to build, and some pickup trucks and more simplified vehicles would probably work out a lot better for us. And that is exactly why I have added a new mod to the mod list, the Vanilla Vehicles Expanded Secondary Weapons mod, allowing us to build some machine guns and other types of weaponry onto some very simple vehicles like trucks and cars and yada yada. Now, something that we didn't have last episode that we definitely need, and what we're going to be currently building, is a proper garage where we can go about building all these car parts. Now that we've bought the schematics and blueprints and also the types of parts themselves off some of our rebel and martial allies, we need a proper place to produce them for ourselves so we're not constantly relying on trade for them. Are we going to be able to produce advanced circuitry here that's going to allow us to build some great big tanks and whatnot? No, but we should be able to make some of those trucks. Wolf himself would be the first to begin some of this production, along with Quinn. However, we are going to need quite a few car parts, so we'll check back in on them in a moment. As of right now, it would appear that we have quite the crop of horses, and also a moose that was tamed at some point, self-tamed most likely. But for the last few episodes, we have a lot of our horses breeding and giving birth, and I thought it might be a good idea for us to take them out and sell them to some of our allies who might be using them for some more off-road missions. But our allies also like to do some of their missions and fighting on the road, and for that they're going to need some fuel, which we have luckily been refining plenty of to sell. We're going to be heading a bit to the northwest here to do some trading with the Oak Foundation, selling them off all of the mentioned products and animals, of course. But not only are we going to be making plenty of silver for the capital's treasury, we're also going to be indulging in a little bit of the Republic of Libertas's culture, you could say, for they are the largest producer of the finest types of alcohol on the entire planet. They also have a few things that we're not able to produce ourselves, like reinforced barrels that we can use for mortars and also artillery. The types of weapons that come in very handy during war, as you might imagine. And even though we were just discussing how we're only going to be producing our own car parts, we would end up purchasing some as well because it was just that much more convenient, of course, and we were making a lot of money off this trade anyhow. While we were out and about, some of our scouts had told us about one of their friends getting injured and attacked by Union soldiers on the road, and they had to leave him behind. Of course, there is a no man, Thromboyan man, left behind policy around these parts, so we would send our trade caravan out to rescue them. In the meantime, though, while they're traveling there to his location, we were finishing up our two first Speed Runner pickup trucks. This lightweight design was actually created by a Thromboyan himself that owned some type of massive hotel chain, and they were optimized for carrying products back and forth for trade, something like that. But we're going to be strapping some big old machine guns onto the back of them on the bed, where some of our soldiers can stand and fire at the enemies. The two first of what we hope to eventually become a mobile battalion. They would also double as city turret defenses as well, though they do have to be manned 24 hours, so we'll still be relying pretty heavily on our automated defenses as well. Now then, by this point, our trade caravan had finally arrived at the location of the wounded soldier, and indeed, he was very much wounded, but thankfully, he seems to still be alive. However, it seems his attackers are still in the area. As a matter of fact, it looks like they've set up some type of temporary camp, almost knowing, no doubt, that we would end up sending a squad out to try to rescue him. Well, unfortunately for them, they were right. we would immediately begin laying down fire against the enemies. Two of them were wielding rifles, and another was wielding a Thromboian ancient sword. Of course, we tried to distract them as much as we could, that way Morg could sneak into their little camp and rescue our own. Though once Morg's stallion was shot in the head, this didn't go quite as smoothly as we had hoped. Thankfully, we were able to lay down enough fire to distract those with rifles, and we could even kill the melee attacker for Morg to get away. We would continue laying down cover fire as he escaped with our new friendo. Their escape very much slowed down by the fact that his stallion was still bleeding out and unable to move. Sorry, old boy, looks like we'll need to leave you behind. Eventually, though, by the grace of our ancestors, we would finally escape the area with everyone intact, thankfully, and we began heading back to the capital. The journey was long and also a bit harsh, given the fact that we had to keep Morg and Oscar from bleeding out on the way back, but eventually we would arrive. To the surprise, of course, of two armed pickup trucks guarding the vehicle entrance here. Happy surprise nonetheless, though. An even happier surprise was when Chieftain Wolf here ended up greeting Oscar and welcoming him to the capital city. The two of them had a lot to discuss, of course, about Oscar's service, and of course he commended him for his service, but he was also curious about the men who had left him behind so they could be dealt with properly. While the two of them are sorting that out, though, we finally got to harvest some of our first chem root, giving us a lot of chem fuel, not only to fuel our new vehicles, but of course to sell to our allies, making us a vast fortune, more so than our taxes and other trade combined, I'm sure. Now that we actually have some proper designated growing zones, I'm going to do something I should have done quite a few episodes ago. We're not going to be growing any rice or cotton or anything like that around the ancestral spire anymore. No, we are actually going to be reusing and refurbishing those areas into some proper parks and scenery. This is a capital city, and it needs to look like one. If we expect the other nations to take us serious, we need a decent-looking capital for when their leaders come here to discuss with us, and something that our people can be proud of as well. But speaking of the vast fortune and the capital's treasury, it is completely full. Almost completely full. We have a lot of money that we've been saving up from trade and taxes, and it's time for us to finally start reinvesting that once more into our nation, all the villages and settlements and towns all around our lands and territories. It's time for us to upgrade all of these places that we've settled and that we've conquered. We are going to be making them bigger. We are going to be making them better. We're going to be making them stronger, not only financially, economically, but we're also going to be improving their militaries. First and foremost, we are going to be increasing the amount of soldiers that we are hiring and equipping, even for some of the settlements that are not quite as rich and as large as some of our other ones near the capital. They're going to be getting some of our Federation soldiers along with some of the militia members who are using makeshift weaponry. If there's an able body with a good set of hands, we're going to put a rifle in those hands. Obviously, from all the upgrades to our military, this also means that we're able to conquer more of the Union's territory and to annex more of these lands for ourselves. And my friends, it is at this point that we can officially say that we are the largest Thromboian country on the entire planet of Degum. I think we passed that milestone a little while ago, but I am very confident that that is the truth now, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. The Federation is truly the greatest nation as well, although I'm not quite through with the Thromboian Union. We want to conquer them, but we also want to totally cripple their government, meaning that they won't be able to stop us or to interfere with us anymore. It is, however, time for us to get our hands dirty a little bit. We're going to be creating a few mortars to take along with us on the journey, as well as creating some mortar shells to use in our rampage and conquest. This will also be a great test of the vehicles that we've been creating to see if they are actually useful, and if they are, we can start giving out more plans to create more in other settlements in our territory so that all of our soldiers under the nation Union can use them, hopefully ending this civil war fairly quickly. Some odd hours later, we would finally arrive as the sun was beginning to set. This was a fair-sized little settlement, but it appeared to be a resource depot, and perhaps it even doubles as a mining settlement as well. Taking out places like this within the Union not only furthers our war agenda, but it also cripples their economy as they can't sell the minerals that they mine. Looks like our brothers and sisters on the other side here, though, also had the same idea we did about refining their own chem fuel to fuel these little operations. That's bad for business. But perhaps the best thing about this little village is that we've actually spotted a council member. As you probably already know, the Union is made up of many different collective tribes, and those tribes have chieftains, and those chieftains are all part of a council, something that Wolf himself was once a part of. Killing him? Now we're talking about crippling their government. But we can't just go in guns blazing, no. We need to have a tactic thought out first. Our strategy is to hit the village with some bombardments. Preferably, if we could hit their chem fuel, that would be absolutely great. Our mortars are going to do a bang-up job, I'm sure, as is the swarm rocket system attached to the back of our Scyther vehicle. Alright then, let's get this party started, shall we? Well, now I think we definitely have their attention, don't you? Time to hit them where it hurts. Using our new strapped-up trucks, we would actually encircle many of their groups of soldiers like sharks in the water, feasting on prey. With them completely surrounded and encircled, there was hardly anything they could do. They were at our mercy. It also helped quite a bit that we continued hitting them with barrage after barrage from our swarm missile system. This would end up causing a little bit of friendly fire against our roadkill tank, unfortunately, but the show must go on. We were ramming every soldier we saw, or at least the ones that we hadn't mowed down with our firearms. The bullets were flying, and the missiles kept pouring in right on top of their poor, pathetic little heads. Unfortunately, though, during this time, the chief and his soldiers would manage to destroy our roadkill tank, and in the process, they would kill our slave Zafra. At least he would finally prove useful and be able to serve the ancestors in his death. We ended up pulling back our vehicles to try to get them to follow us and to chase us, which they did. With their chieftain incapacitated, the others would begin to flee, or at least what was left of them. As you could guess, our trucks weren't too keen on letting too many of them slip through the cracks, though. Well, well, well. Chief Terzin, still alive, are you, old boy? I thought you would have bled out by the time we drove up on you over here. We've come quite a long ways from those old council meetings, eh? Me standing over top of you, brandishing my rifle, you in a pool of your own blood and the mud. Ah, good times. Don't bother standing up on my occasion, old pal. What am I talking about? Both of your legs are shredded. You're not going anywhere, huh? I suppose we'll patch you up a little bit. Having you bleed out here on the battlefield is a death much better than what you deserve. Besides, we really need to serve justice in this case and make an example out of you. In the meantime, this little resource depot is going to be razed to the ground. We have our soldiers going through and destroying any and all resources that could be useful to the Union that won't be useful to us. Thankfully, some of the chem fuel that they made actually survived our initial barrages of missiles. They have it and we need it. Now that's what I call supply and demand. Looks like we'll also be getting some bonus points with our rebel allies, as we have a few of their civilians and even their soldiers that were enslaved here. We'll be releasing them very shortly. And with that, my friends, this village, resource depot, mining outpost, whatever the hell it was, and whatever you want to call it, is taken care of truly. With our work here completed, it was time for us to head all the way back to the capital, where we were pulling right over the bridge into the garage and releasing our plethora of resources and weapons and even some mechanoid corpses. Now, what would we want with those silly old corpses? Well, they do have some advanced circuitry as well as some metal and other things that we might find useful, but I'd like to see if we might be able to reverse engineer them. If not, maybe the rebels or someone can kind of help us out with getting some mechs. Wolf does have a chip in his head, so it's something I'd like to explore in the future. In the meantime, we would end up taking and showing Chief Terzan to our finest prison cell. He's going to serve his sentence, but first we need to make sure that his, thinking and comprehension, I suppose you could say, isn't blocked out by all the pain. So while Terzan is healing up a little bit before his sentencing and, judgment day, we seem to have a bit of a power issue. Now, of course, we're running out of room for all of our water mills, so we've also decided to add some solar power in addition to our water mills to power our beautiful city. Good old-fashioned clean and green energy. It's like giving the planet of Degum a little smooch on the cheek and saying, "Thank you for everything, Mama," or something like that. Our vehicles, on the other hand, not so much, but that's a problem for the future. We are at war right now, and some sacrifices have to be made. With our power generation issue taken care of, now we need to fix the issue of where to store it all. The city is substantially larger than it was when we initially built this power storage facility with all the batteries, so we're just adding in some additional ones as well as a fuse to catch any issues and make sure we don't have an explosion in our power grid. I also noticed that we had completely forgotten to dispose of the corpse of our slave. Now, if he weren't a slave to us, we probably would have cared, but this does bring up a good question. Where the hell are we putting all these corpses? Well, lately we've been stashing them all behind a mountain, but no more of that. It's time that we get really civilized, and we're going to be building ourselves a cremation building in the outskirts of the city, somewhere that we can actually keep all the corpses of our enemies and allies alike, and we can actually burn them. Now, proper Thromboians like ourselves, not an enslaved Thromboian who refused to convert and understand the true light of our ancestors, we won't be cremating, but for Zafra here, we definitely will. May the ancestors guide you to the true light in the afterlife, Zafra. Godspeed, little fella. Godspeed. We would also end up making some pretty minor improvements to our defenses of the city as well. In the southern entrance, southeastern entrance, I should say, we ended up adding in some more proper turrets, as well as a scrap turret in behind the embrasures there, where we can also shoot out at enemies. We threw in some steel bear traps, as they are much better than the spike traps. They're resettable, and they do much more damage. Just some simple defenses, nothing too fancy. And I must say, with all the recent additions onto our capital city, it is coming along very nicely and is damn near finished. Whereas once we had a small riverside village here, we now have a booming capital city as we wanted. Sure, we still have plenty of improvements and additions to make, but we are pretty close and it is coming nicely. In the meantime, while we are worried about expanding, our soldiers nearby are doing pretty well at conquering. So well, in fact, that they are beginning to take the vast majority of settlements that they attack, and are even forcing the Union soldiers to retreat to nearby abandoned cities. Let's take a look. call that a successful mission, wouldn't you, Abanair, old pal? But there's still much more ground to cover and much more to do. For example, we have a celebration to attend. Ah, blessed joyous news, my friends. Glorious days. The chief is finally healed up enough that he's not in some type of pain coma, and he is fit to stand trial for his transgressions against the Federation, the one true Thrumboian nation. You see, the only problem there, Chief, is I'm not only the judge, but I'm also the jury and the executioner, and I've already considered you guilty for quite some time. May the ancestors have mercy on you, for we shall not. Oh, I can't tell you how good that felt. I suppose it should come as no surprise, but everyone felt that that was a very satisfying public execution, and I can't say I blame them. This filthy traitor deserved the worst, and that's exactly what he got. As I mentioned before, it's about making an example and sending a message. But if you thought that was satisfying, now comes the really satisfying part. Loading his corpse up into a transport pod. Oh, what's that? You thought we were going to burn his corpse? Oh, you poor dumb animal. No, we are going to be sending him back to the Union. Perhaps that will help them really get the picture, and also it should really help cut their morale in half, I would think, especially for his tribe. Message received loud and clear. See you later.